Hi, everyone. This is John Daly. I'm here with my co host Thomas D. House for another episode of the Reagan Caucus podcast. Our guest today is a senior fellow at AEI, that's the American Enterprise Institute, to those of you that don't know. His areas of research include workforce and talent development and employment training programs. I'm talking about Brent Orrell. Brent, thanks for joining the two of us today on the Reagan Caucus podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's always great talking to you. We wanted to talk to you today largely about AI, artificial intelligence, and its impact on the American workforce. This is a topic that a lot of people ask me about, oddly enough. I guess because I'm a political writer, they think I have some special insight, or maybe because I was a software developer in an earlier life, but it's something that I honestly don't know that much about. You, on the other hand, have been doing a lot of research into this area. AEI published a report from you just a few weeks ago that detailed some of your findings. The report was titled "De-skilling the Knowledge Economy," which sounds a little scary. Can you, Brent, tell people what that means? What sort of de-skilling are you talking about?
Yeah, de-skilling is less frightening than it sounds, but it is a real thing, and the knowledge workers are not the first people who will have experienced de-skilling. Much of the manufacturing labor force was de-skilled by robotics. The agricultural economy was de-skilled by automation and by industrial processes. So this is all consistent with a long march of technology and innovation in the American economy, which is essential. We can't afford not to do it. It's what increases our living standards. It improves our health and well-being, our incomes, everything. And so de-skilling the knowledge economy is simply the next step. And the reason that it will de-skill the knowledge economy is that we employ so many people in the knowledge sector. The services in this country, which are principally things like finance, insurance, and a variety of other kinds of business consulting, things like that, that makes up 80% of our workforce. We are putting all of our human capital into this sector, or almost all of it. And it also has, you take something, for instance, like healthcare, it is tremendously resistant to improvements around productivity. Not because people are lazy in healthcare, but just because the type of work that's being done in some of these fields hasn't been automatable in the past, and now it is. And so that process is de-skilling, where machines move in to take over skills, principally, not jobs, but move in to take over certain kinds of skills that were once done exclusively by human beings, allowing human beings then to go on and do more and other things. And that's been the pattern of automation since automation was a concept, and I think it's the pattern with this as well.
Now, I was reading through the report, and you sort of make the point that though AI will be affecting all the sectors, at some point, currently the ones that it's really the job sectors that it's really affecting are sort of the high tech jobs, the ones involving math,
Ironic.
programming, that sort of thing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so ironic to me that the people who felt the impact of AI-based automation first were in the sector that created AI, principally the coders. 10 years ago, we told everybody, go learn to code, and they did. And we produced a lot of coders, both people with 4-year degrees and people with 2-year degrees and boot camp certifications and on and on. I mean, as recently as 2020, that was what then candidate Biden was talking about. It was like, hey, everybody go code. You need to learn how to code. AI is eating those jobs, and as well as a lot now. So that's where it started. Now it's kind of seeping out into other knowledge economy, entry level knowledge economy jobs. We've all been reading a lot about the struggles of recent college graduates that they're having trying to get into the workforce because there's been a slowdown. Now, we don't know exactly what that's causing that slowdown, but some of it is certainly AI. Um, People, if for no other reason than businesses are kind of like, why am I hiring a person to do this when it looks like in 6 months the job is going to be automated? And it's just more efficient not to have to go through that process. Uh, anyway, so there's a lot of reasons for that, but AI is among them, and that this is the early impact. And I expect to see more of this as the technology kind of diffuses across the economy.
Yeah, I will say I was a little bit when I was reading your report, and there are obviously things, some advantages, well, several advantages of AI, lots of advantages of AI. But I would say just from my perspective, it felt a little concerning. I'm a father of two college students, current college students. One's pursuing something in the tech world, and the other's not sure what she wants to do yet. She just started. But I've tried to express to them, over the years as I've raised them the importance of, learning skills that will give them an edge over others in the workforce, preferably with, their minds rather than their brawn, their,
Yeah.
physical strength. And I worry that this AI revolution is already, and I know they'll catch up, but it's already outpacing college courses and other workforce programs, and thus making the skills my kids are learning right now, I'm worried far less valuable than they were just a couple years ago. I do think, like I said, I think these educational programs will catch up and adapt at some point, but it's not going to happen overnight. And I feel with the sheer speed of AI, it's a challenging situation. Am I right to be worried, Brant, about
So
this?
yes, uh, one way to think about this is that automation is great for people and bad for persons, right? So it's great at a like a macro level, you know. It's when you get down to the individual situations, it's like, oh, that may be me, or that may be my kids who are going to experience the challenges that go along with these kinds of economic transformations. But we know from the history of automation that the economy gets bigger, that jobs get created as a result, that productivity rises, incomes rise. It it has consistently been a benefit to human beings to automate human labor. Uh, so, but that's the macro picture. That's the 20-year, 25-year, 30-year time horizon when we are living in a day-to-day, month-to-month world. We've got bills to pay and food to put on the table. So I totally get the anxiety. And let's face it, America is a very anxious nation right now. This is coming at a time when people are already pretty strung out by the pace of change, by the recent cultural and political developments, by the impact of social media and other digital products. We're asking people a lot of people right now. And that I think is concerning to me because I think there is a carrying capacity that human beings have for change. Um, uh, it took millions of years for human beings to evolve into what they are now, and it's taking AI years, and pretty soon less than years, and then months, and then weeks. And so we're going to be pushed along harder and harder by the things that we've created, and it's going to really test our capacity for adaptation.
I think that's right, and I feel bad for this generation that, going through the pandemic, there was all those, academic struggles then, and now to fall into this, it's just sort of bad
Yeah.
timing. But I do want to bring in Thomas into the conversation for some questions. Go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, so yeah, this is probably one of the most relevant things today, and we're probably not talking about it enough, at least in the sort of public conversation. So I'm really glad that you're bringing this up and it's well researched and you have an understanding of what's going on. So it seems to me that um, you're a pretty market friendly um,
Yeah.
person when it comes to policy, but you're also somebody who's very concerned with people on the margins and that there's a sort of safety net of society and also that people on the margins. Um, what do you? I know my understanding is in German-speaking countries like in Switzerland, where well it's multi-language, but but it's Switzerland
Right.
and Germany and Austria, they have programs to help transition people through these sort of what's the term when
Disruption or
disruption, yeah,
yeah.
market disruptions. What kind of like federal level or the state level, what kind of policies can be done to help people smooth out their
Yeah.
transitions?
For me, this is probably we've got a lot of critical problems we're dealing with, right? But for me, this is one of those just over the horizon questions that we need to get ahead of. The U.S. One of the strengths of the U.S. Economy has always been the flexibility of its labor market. We don't regulate it nearly as heavily as our European uh, counterparts, other developed countries that have much stronger job protections that mandate a lot more on employers to provide to their employees, and in terms of the transition assistance that you were talking about. So that's always been a real strength for us. I would argue that in the manufacturing transition that we went through in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, that labor market flexibility, that approach to labor market flexibility hurt us, or at least it hurt enough of the population that it fed into a lot of what we're seeing in our culture and politics now, um, and that we should try to avoid that. Doesn't mean we have to adopt the European approach. Um, as Milton Friedman said, when somebody came to him to praise the Nordic countries and Sweden in particular, it's you got to, Professor Friedman, you have to look at Sweden. I mean, it's amazing what they do. And Friedman just smiled and he said, "Yeah, our problem is we don't have enough Swedes." And that remains true. America is a very diverse country, very big and diverse country, and Sweden is a small, homogenous country. And the systems that work there aren't going to work here. But I do think we need to be thinking creatively about what we have to say to workers who end up being displaced by technology. Uh, uh, because as we, again, going back to manufacturing, we didn't really have much of anything. And we didn't really, I was there. I mean, we didn't even think about this when we were passing NAFTA and the internet was being created and so on. We didn't really think about what's going to happen to the workers. We just figured the market would take care of it. Market did take care of a lot of it, right? 80% of Americans are much better off now than they were before the automation and before NAFTA. But the 10% or 20% that aren't better off were very concentrated geographically in the upper Midwest and particularly in rural areas. And so we didn't have much in the way of transition programs to help people reskill and reattach to the workforce. My proposal in all of this is something I'm just getting started on right now, is that I think we need a bipartisan national commission that can do kind of scenario planning. We don't know how quickly AI is going to develop. We don't know who's going to benefit and who's not, and who is going to be hurt in the process. And we don't know how many. So I think what we need are to get, a bipartisan group together to plan for high, medium, low scenario impact scenarios, um, and work through ahead of time. What are the policies that Congress could consider if this comes to pass? If it's big impact or moderate or low impact, what would we need to do in each of those scenarios in order to make sure that the affected people, in essence, don't feel like they're being left on their own, uh, and and have some opportunities to make a run at transitioning to the AI-driven economy. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. It doesn't mean passing big programs right now. I wouldn't be in favor of that. I think that because we just don't know, um, and who's going to be affected and how many and which skills and so on. But I think it makes sense to invest in planning in case um, in case AI is as disruptive as some people say it's going to be.
Would you say, is there anything that could be done from standpoint of education reform, either at the state level or the national level, to help better transition?
Yeah, it's another good question. I mean, I'm not a K-12 education expert or education expert of any kind, but uh, I think that the thing about AI is that it's driving itself forward, right? The adoption of this technology is so much faster even than the internet was, and that is going to push every institution to come to grips with this reality, including education. I think AI is a fantastic resource for educators. Um, the potential capacity to tailor and individualize education to meet the specific needs of every student is phenomenal. And if you're a teacher with a classroom of 30 and everybody's at a slightly different level, and you're trying to teach to the middle and hope that you're hitting the bullseye, or the most beneficial for the most people, that's not very satisfactory, right? Uh, uh, it For kids who are accelerated, they need to be allowed to accelerate. They need to be encouraged to accelerate. For kids who are lagging, they need the extra support. And I think that AI holds the potential for that kind of individualized tutoring. We've
Mhm.
seen some of this already being developed by Khan Academies and others, where you know you have a math coach rather than a math class,
Mhm.
which I could have enormously benefited from. Uh,
Mhm.
I really struggled with algebra and geometry, and if I, there's not enough time in the day for teachers to meet those kinds of needs.
Mhm. Yeah, and it makes me wonder. I mean, it's a little bit off topic because education's something dear to me as well, and that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And I think they're starting to see. I'm starting to hear some things about that using some of this technology for more targeted education. I just met somebody who is made a he's making an AI app for Catholic
Mm,
educators to give more individualized uh, to reduce their work time on like sort of Catholic education or catechism and all of that, whatever. So I imagine that's happening in different
yeah,
parts of education.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
it has a momentum of its own. It's just finding its way into every nook and cranny,
mhm,
because people recognize the efficiencies that are possible.
mhm. Now I'm wondering though. Um, My other concern, though, about this is that of Jonathan Haidt, that I see students are reading a lot less lately. And we're all reading a lot less lately because we're all addicted to our phones. And I think, and my sense is that something's lost in that, that people not, doing long form reading with books. There's a sort of training that you think slowly with another person's
Right.
thoughts.
Yeah.
It has a
You're, you're,
sort of
you're
value.
singing out of my hymnal. Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
All of it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that one of the first pieces I wrote when I came to AEI was a long piece on St. John's College in Annapolis, which is a great books program,
Hmm.
and how many of their students, despite having never received any technical training in their 4-year degree programs, went on to work in the IT sector.
Hmm.
Um, that's pretty surprising in one way, because you think, oh, these egghead humanities majors, what could they possibly have to offer to IT? And the answer, of course, is that they didn't become coders; they became systems architects
Hmm.
because they had developed this capacity to see a big problem and think about that problem in an expansive way, and then begin to develop an end-to-end solution for it.
Hmm.
Um, the value of that kind of education, I think, is going up, not down.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the problem that you're describing is going to result in uh, things like a 4 years humanities degree becoming what it always was
Hmm.
when it was created, which was it was an activity for the elites. It was not meant for everybody.
Hmm.
Not everybody has an interest in it. Like I think everybody should learn to write well. I can't make them learn to write well.
Hmm.
They have to want that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
and most people do not want that. Writing is friction. It slows people down. They don't want, they've got ideas. They don't know how to put them onto paper, and they will turn to AI to do it for them. And there's nothing we're going to be able to do about that. And I really don't even want to try to do something about that. I want to focus on the students and other individuals who are already sold on the importance of that kind of education, and then pump them up, because we need them as leaders to
Hmm.
help, if for no other reason, to help control this technology. We need people who can think in a humane way about technology to help us create the guardrails on it. But I don't think it makes sense to kind of, oh, people aren't reading anymore. It's like people who like to read, read. People who don't like to read, don't read.
Hmm.
And I can't make people other than what they already are. So let's
Hmm.
work with what they are, not what we think they should be.
Hmm. I guess my concern is that I agree with most of that, but I've got three daughters, and two of them are in school now, and we're always like pushing the teachers to use less screens in school because we try to keep the screens down at home as well.
Mhm.
Um, and my our own experience is when we've reduced the screens, since we've reduced the screens significantly, is um, the kids their moods improve. They are more curious. They're doing more projects, and they're just being more, things go much better. Um,
And
I
I'm only
mean,
talking, Thomas, from a policy standpoint. I'm
oh
not,
yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering if maybe it would just be a cultural thing that
yeah,
schools would have to adopt this to
yeah.
reduce, make kids put away their phones, or to put away their phones during the school day. But I guess you could make that a policy thing at a public school level. Just, say we're not,
Yeah, and I mean, I think we have now, because of the great work of Jonathan Haidt and others, we've done that with social media, or we're in the process of doing that by saying no phones.
Hmm.
And I, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with AI. You can kick it out of the classroom, but you cannot kick it out of people's lives.
That's right.
And yeah, it's again, we, parents and families are going to be the first line of defense, and being wise about the use of the technology. And I think we're already seeing, I mean, we did learn something out of the social media experience. When we have kids spinning out on AI, there's already been a move to begin to regulate that,
Hmm.
and and the companies themselves moving to shut off unlimited access for kids because they just don't have the sort of mental frameworks that they need to control it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we did learn some lessons, and I think that's going to pay off when it comes to AI in terms of both what happens on the industry side and then what the states are doing. The states are stepping in to regulate. And this is what my theory of regulation around AI has been from like the beginning. It's if we regulate, we're cutting ourselves off from innovation that we don't want to do. We need all the innovation that we can get.
Mhm.
So we don't want to over-regulate. Where harms are demonstrated, if we don't have the regulatory authority that we need, then we create it. We've got an awful lot of existing regulatory authority that can be used with AI. We don't need a Department of AI regulation. We need our courts and our legislatures and our regulators thinking of, like, what tools do I already have, and
Mhm.
how can I address the evils that I can actually see rather than the ones that might happen.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that trade-off where you want smart regulations, but generally smart regulations are few, because if they get too many, then they become micromanagement, and then
Yeah,
that cuts off the innovation side of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And innovation can be to improve regulation because
yeah. No,
companies
that's
can find multiple ways, some better than others, to achieve the ends that the
yeah.
regulator.
And this reflects a theme that I've got in an essay that's coming out very shortly on law and liberty about you know recursive AI, which is AI that improves itself. We're already beginning to see glimmers of that,
Wow.
and I think that AI may become part of the solution to AI,
Okay.
um, because it can develop, it can tell us begin to tell us how to develop systems to monitor and control it.
Hmm.
It's weird, but uh, I think that that's the nature of the technology, is that it's going to help us solve the problems that it creates.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess Elon Musk kind of made a little faux pas a few weeks ago when they're they changed. I don't know if you're off of Twitter now, but it was something else. They tweaked the programming for Grok,
Yeah,
and Grok was saying pro-Nazi
Mecha Hitler,
comments,
that part.
huh?
Yeah, Mecha Hitler.
Mecha Hitler and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And then Elon Musk apparently, I don't know, his mind is off in space. 2 days later announces that after they fixed the problem, but 2 days later announced we're going to be including Grok in the new Tesla models. It's like probably wait a couple weeks, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, nobody ever claimed that he was a PR specialist.
Yeah, that's right. But it makes you nervous because I think Grok it uses for its training the Twitter. Maybe that says something about Twitter users.
Well, it definitely does. I mean, I always tell people, like, AI is just us.
Hmm.
It's everything that we've ever said or done or thought.
Hmm.
And we all know what we're like. Like we are a mixture of good and bad,
Hmm.
and that because that's the way we are, that's the way the technology is going to be.
That's right, because uh, it's predictive language. It's predicting what we would say in response.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Do you have anything, John?
I do. One thing I noticed about your report too, Brent, is that you talked about how people who have better social skills will benefit in this AI world to sort of distinguish themselves. So I'm wondering, does this mean that people like me, who are sadly proficient with social media, but and dazzle people with their charisma and their comedic wit, may actually have an advantage over smart people in this era of AI?
Well, yeah, you were really cut from the same cloth there, John. So our charisma is overwhelming, to be fair.
It dazzles. It dazzles
Yeah, it
people.
dazzles, and yeah, it's not really fair to others. Just how dazzling we are. Uh, so this has been true. It's always been true that highly skilled, uh, highly socially skilled people, um, we call them extroverts, and the world has traditionally belonged to them because they have that, you know, human societies, human economies are nothing but people interacting with each other. And the better you are at that, the more advantages that you typically have. So that's always been true, and there's nothing about AI that's going to make that untrue. In fact, what we see is that as the technology takes over more and more of the repetitive technical tasks, that people like myself, and I suspect you too as well, like we kind of like being alone in a room, reading and writing and thinking, right?
Hmm.
Um, and um, uh, and so the technology is going to take over more and more of those routine, mechanized uh, knowledge tasks. And what's left is that you need people who are really agile socially to help lead teams of people that are overseeing the technology and designing and building it. And so the people who can, balance sort of a legacy technical knowledge. You know how computers work. You've got a foundation in kind of computer theory. You've got a good working knowledge of how AI operates, which is distinct from computer programming, but AI, how these large language models operate and their applications, and these what we call non-cognitive skills, which are the relational skills. That's the package for the future right now. And so this links a bit back to what Thomas and I were talking about in terms of what's the utility of studying the humanities in an AI-driven economy. Well, it turns out there's a lot of use for it because it'll teach you about human nature. It will teach you, it will give you wisdom. It will give you a reflective capacity that technical education by itself doesn't usually do. So that's why I keep pushing people like, are you sure you don't want to go to a great books program? Because I think it could be really, foundational for a successful future. Um, I think there's definitely a place uh, for slow thinking in an AI world. In fact, I think it's going to be essential um, to, again, build the guardrails around the technology.
Now, I've seen some on the shifting a little bit. I've seen some on the political right argue that with AI taking more tech jobs away, it's even more important that we have sort of the stronger manufacturing sector in the United States. I know there's a lot of tech involved there too, obviously, but and they're sort of using that as a defense of the trade war stuff. But the numbers we're seeing, show that tariffs are actually doing the opposite. They're killing manufacturing jobs. We're recording this on Friday morning, and jobs report just came out. I think we've lost 12,000 manufacturing jobs last month. We're down 78,000 for the year. Um, are we just in the short term just kind of screwed, Brant? No matter what we do, we're gonna have to figure out a way, stop doing the dumb things, start
Uh,
doing the
that's
smart things, and
that's
we're
that's
not in a good spot.
that's why we need the scenario planning that I was talking about. It's eventually going to produce a lot more jobs than it destroys. I mean, for instance, it's way too early to attribute, say, a loss of 12,000 manufacturing jobs to AI. That's that's just it could just as easily be, the beginnings of a slowdown in the economy and people just cutting, manufacturers seeing less demand and therefore producing less stuff. Um, the what I don't get about, well, actually, I do understand it, and it's why the protectionist policies are so insidious. Is that we actually become less efficient and less competitive under a tariff regime.
Mhm.
We are disincentivized in the adoption of technology that improves competitiveness. So what's going to happen is American industry over the longer term will be less efficient and less competitive, and we will be poorer as a country as a result. And that's why the tariff effects are are so are so insidious, is that they pretend to want to help current workers, but only at the expense of future workers. Um, and that's a that's a fool's errand, very foolish thing to do over the long term. I think we need the most efficient, most competitive economy, as we have always been, on the world stage. And I think this is, we're giving up our competitive edge, I think. Um, and additionally, even if the tariffs are successful in increasing domestic manufacturing, I don't think they will be, but even if they are, um, the the um, the manufacturing jobs themselves are never going to um, live up to the hopes of the people who are putting so much hope into them. Manufacturing jobs of today are very, very different than they were in as recently as the 70s and 80s. I mean, that they're much more, you know, you're not a line worker, you're a machine manager.
Mhm.
You're a technologist in a factory, and uh, we're romanticizing a past. I think that it's long gone, and it's not coming back, and we can only hurt ourselves by resisting uh, uh, the that reality.
Do you have anything you'd like to add there, Thomas?
Oh yeah, no, that's yeah. I think you said it all perfectly. I can't remember if it was what's the name of that guy in the Trump administration who they had to shut up because he was saying like we're gonna be those jobs where the Chinese people are putting together the iPhones. We're gonna bring those to the
One
United
here,
States.
right? Yeah, yeah. That was Secretary of Commerce talking, I believe.
Yeah,
And actually, we don't want those
we
jobs.
don't want those jobs.
You
Yeah.
know, we do not want those jobs, and Americans won't do them.
Hmm.
They don't pay enough. They're very physically taxing and tedious, and Americans don't want them. that want to do that kind of work. So it's just so wrong on so many levels. It's really hard to get your mind around how wrong it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, well, we'll see what happens here with, I just hope that we don't have a constitutional crisis with the administration responding to the courts shutting down these tariffs. I'm not quite sure. He said in a tweet that they will continue the tariffs. Does he mean because he thinks the Supreme Court will overturn it, or what? Do you guys have?
I don't know.
Yeah,
You know,
okay. Well,
I don't
let's
know
well
what.
let's hope.
Well,
Let's hope that that's what.
they're
Yeah,
telling
I
us, the
mean,
administration is telling us that without these tariffs, America is over. So we
yeah.
can't survive without these tariffs at this point. So
It would be so much better. It's kind of like tariffs are like the universal basic income of the right,
Yeah.
um, or the right as it currently exists. It's a very appealing idea that, in this hyper-abundant future, we just like send everybody a sovereign wealth check, and that's what they live on. They don't have to work anymore. And uh, uh, the likelihood of those circumstances developing, I think, are pretty low, at least in the medium term future. Maybe we'll all end up living in Jetson land, and we won't need to work. Uh, but that's certainly not on offer right now, and so it's all just like very premature and not very well thought through in the same way that tariffs are. I agree with David Otter, the MIT guy who identified the China shock, or thought he had identified the China shock. Um, you know, we ought to be spending that money on better equipping our workforce to remain relevant in this AI future. If you want to spend that money, let's spend it on uh, developing the skill base of our workforce so that it better aligns to the needs of the economy we see today and the economy we're going to have tomorrow.
Yeah, that seems right, and I think that's a great way to place to end with that takeaway. So, uh, John, you want to wrap it up for us?
yeah, sure thing. Well, Brent, we want to thank you so much for coming on the Reagan Caucus podcast. You know your stuff, and you always provide useful information, and that's the kind of information we appreciate here in Reagan Caucus world. So we'd love to have you back on sometime if you're up for it.
I am always up for it because I love talking with both of you.
Oh,
Excellent, and the feeling is mutual. For everybody else, thanks for tuning in. If you watched today's episode on YouTube, as always, make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or some other audio platform, like and subscribe as well. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time on the Reagan Caucus podcast.